Welcome back. All right, so we're almost up to it, aren't we? 3.5 weeks from now, we're going to be looking at playoffs and a lot of discussion about who's going to win and who's going to lose. Going to be a lot of arguing, a lot of back and forth. One thing to look at is how a team's been playing since the All-Star break. And it is important to look at which teams are playing really well going into the playoffs. It is not easy to turn that switch back on, and it can be hard to stop a team that's been playing playoff hockey for a while. This is why wildcard teams are dangerous. These teams have been fighting their way through since the All-Star break, trying to make the playoffs. And so they could be a tough out in the playoffs because they've already been playing for their lives for a while, whereas the teams at the top haven't had that same level of stress. And so that's why you end up seeing upsets in many cases. And I've said before, I'll say it again, I could see that being the case this year. We could see some upsets. So the New York Rangers are the only team that's clinched so far. They have 100 points in 72 games. Since the All-Star break, they're 18-4-1. Their points percentage, 804. That is second on the board behind only Nashville. So for a points percentage, that's pretty good for the New York Rangers. They're scoring 3.65 goals per game. They're allowing 2.43 goals against per game. Shesterkin's 12-3-1 over that time period with a 931 save percentage. Quick is 6-1 with a 919 save percentage. So one thing that the Rangers have that a lot of other teams on the board don't is if something happened to their starter, they have a backup they can throw in there and not really have to worry that much. The drop down from Shesterkin to Quick is there, but is it enough to necessarily knock the Rangers out of the playoffs? No. The Rangers are going to be tough out this year. And I think their play since the All-Star break shows that as well. The 804 points percentage, again, second on the board. Easily second on the board. Although Carolina, with 97 points in 73 games, they've been 17-6-2 since the All-Star break with a 720 points percentage. That's still pretty good. 3.36 goals scored per game, 2.12 goals against per game. The goals against are important, and their goaltending's actually been really solid since the All-Star break as well. Kochetkov's 8-6-1 with a 920 save percentage. Freddie Anderson, perfect 6-0 since returning. 951 save percentage. And Spencer Martin likes it in Carolina. 3-0-1 with a 921 save percentage. So whoever they go with in the playoffs for game one, I'm guessing Freddie Anderson, but if they came out and said, we're going to go with Kochetkov. In fact, if Carolina came out and said, we're going to rotate goalies in the playoffs, I don't think anybody in Canes fandom would panic. The Canes are going to be tough. They're going to be a tough out. Again, they're playing really, really well. Sure, it's a little down from where the Rangers are playing recently, and they're 3 points back of the Rangers. They've played one more game, but still, come playoff time, they can compete. The one question mark with Carolina remains, will the goals be there when they need them as they advance through the playoffs? That's where things have dried up for them in the past. Thus, the additions of Kuznetsov and Gensel at the deadline. Philadelphia, 73 games, 82 points. We all know this team hasn't had the greatest run lately. They're 11-8-4 since the All-Star break. 565 points percentage. That's the lowest of any teams on the board from the East, and it is the second lowest overall. Actually, Vegas has the lowest points percentage. We'll get to Vegas last. But 3.04 goals scored per game, 3.35 goals against per game. The goaltending's an issue, and I think it is remarkable how long Philadelphia has stayed in this spot. I think it's remarkable how well they've played at times, but also keep in mind that not too long ago you needed at least 100 points to reach the playoffs. If the East was like that again this year, Flyers wouldn't be in this spot, but every year is different. Erson's been 9-5-4 since the deadline, or since the All-Star break. 891 save percentage. Sandstrom, rough 1-2 with an 823 save percentage. And so Philadelphia, the goaltending hasn't quite been good enough to steal them occasional games here and there, and it may very well be what costs them a playoff spot should they end up falling out. But again, Detroit, a team that's not on the board because they're not above the line, will Detroit end up being able to knock Philadelphia out? Because it definitely looks like Washington's going to knock Philadelphia down, and then you may have Washington and Carolina in the first round. That could be interesting. Boston, 73 games, 99 points. I decided, you know what, I got to wear Boston's Centennial jersey because it's not going to be a Centennial season again. I'm going to miss these jerseys when they're gone. They're 11-7-6 since the All-Star break. 583 points percentage. That's low compared to most of the teams on the board. 2.96 goals scored per game, 3.04 goals against per game. The alarming thing with Boston's been the defense and goaltending not being where you want it to be if you're the Bruins. Bruins pride themselves on their goaltending and their defense being excellent, and it's been kind of a mixed bag. Swayman, 7-5-1 with an 899 save percentage. Ullmark, 4-2-5 with a 911 save percentage. Ullmark's been the better of the two goaltenders. I do expect a rotation come playoff time, and I don't know. Boston, it feels like, might be ripe for an upset in the first round. It really is going to depend on who they're up against. If they're up against, say, Tampa Bay, which is how it would work if the playoffs were paired off right now, I don't know if I would like their odds against Tampa. That could be a very interesting series, though. Once we get to Tampa, I'll explain why. Florida, 72 games, 97 points. They're 15-7-1 since the All-Star break. 674 points percentage. That's excellent. They've been a little colder lately, obviously. Losing that game last night against Boston, for example. But they're scoring 3.26 goals per game. They're allowing 2.13 goals against per game. And their goaltending has been remarkable. Bobrovsky, 9-6-1 with a 923 save percentage since the All-Star break. Stolarz is 6-1 with a 945 save percentage. Stolarz has been ridiculous. So it is something to keep in mind, of course, that come playoff time, Bobrovsky's going to be the goaltender, and he'll be the goalie unless something happens. But yeah, I mean, it's been insane watching Florida, and how well Stolarz has played has been quite the story. For Toronto, 71 games played, 89 points. So they're not going to be able to move up, right? But they do have to worry about Tampa Bay right underneath them. For Toronto, they're 15-8-1. 646 is the points percentage. So better than Philly, better than Boston, better than Tampa, better than Washington. And yet we hear all the doubting all the time, and I get it. They're scoring 3.92 goals per game. They're allowing 3.13 goals against per game. The concern I would have with Toronto is that 3.92, they're probably not going to be able to get that in the playoffs. So it could come down to defense and goaltending, and there's some real concerns there. The 3.13 goals against per game is one of the higher numbers, not the highest, but it's higher than they want it to be. Samsonov's been their best of the three goaltenders since the All-Star break. 11-3-1 with a 902 save percentage. Martin Jones, 2-1 with an 892 save percentage. Wall, I do wonder if he's 100%. He's 2-4 with an 884 save percentage since the All-Star break. Then we get to the wild cards, and for Tampa Bay, they have 85 points in 71 games. Tonight they're at home against Boston, and if they can win that, they pull themselves within 2 points of Toronto. Now, of course, they played the same amount of games, but it can happen. Tampa Bay, 12-7-2 since the All-Star break, 619 points percentage. Scoring 3.48 goals per game, allowing 3.38 goals against per game. So, getting back to the Boston argument, a series between Boston and Tampa Bay could be really high scoring because they've both had trouble keeping the puck out of their net compared to what they would want to. Boston likes to win games 2-1, 3-2. For Tampa Bay, Vasilevsky, widely seen as the best goaltender in the NHL. I feel like this season, after this one's done, we may see a bit of a change in some of that thinking. But Vasilevsky, 10-6-2 with an 895 save percentage. Not where you want it to be. And I say could because if Tampa Bay goes on a run in the playoffs and Vasilevsky plays really well, his mediocre regular season numbers will be forgotten quickly. Johansson's 2-1 with an 855 save percentage since the All-Star break. So there are some concerns for Tampa, but they've overcome those concerns in the past. It could be a really crazy series in the first round. Whoever they play against, it could be one of the more high-scoring series we see. Washington, 71 games, 81 points. They're 14-8-2 since the All-Star break, 625 points percentage. Yes, their goal differential's ugly, but not since the All-Star break. They're scoring 3.42 goals per game. They're allowing 3.25 goals against per game. Lindgren's been very good, 12-6-1 with a 906 save percentage over that time. Darcy Kemper, bit of a rough go for him lately. He's 2-1 with an 873 save percentage. So Kemper's numbers have been kind of ugly, but Lindgren's been quite good. He's the starter. I do wonder, okay, so in a playoff setup, is it going to be different? Will Lindgren get lit up? You never know until the playoffs start which goalies are going to be able to carry over a good regular season and which ones won't be able to. But the East is interesting because, again, I think you can make an argument for almost anybody on the board, and we'll see how it goes from here. On the Western side of things, you got Dallas, 99 points in 73 games. Again, it's remarkable how many teams are at 100, 98, 97, 99. There's so many teams all within a few points of each other. But for Dallas, they're 15-6-3 since the deadline, 688 points percentage. They've been good at getting wins. Not always the prettiest of wins, but they've been good at getting wins. 3.58 goals scored per game, allowing 2.79 goals against per game. The interesting thing for me with Dallas is goaltending. I think Wedgwood's been a little bit better than Ottinger lately. Ottinger's 12-4-2 with an 893 save percentage. Wedgwood 3-2-1 with a 907 save percentage. I think Wedgwood's giving him pretty good goaltending. But of course, Otter will be the goaltender to start the playoffs, and I'll be curious to see whether we get the Ottinger we got a couple years ago against Calgary, or if we get the Ottinger from last year's playoffs where he could look great one night and iffy the next. We'll see. Colorado, 72 games, 97 points for them. They're 14-7-2 since the All-Star break. 652 points percentage, that's quite good. 3.48 goals scored per game, 2.65 goals against per game. Georgiev is kind of getting outplayed by Annunen just a little bbit. Georgiev's 10-4-1 with a 913 save percentage. Annunen 4-3-1 with a 931 save percentage. So pretty good run for the rookie goaltender that just got the extension. Georgiev, I think, has probably been overplayed a little bit by Colorado, so it's good to see the backup getting more work. And we'll see if Georgiev's numbers improve going into the playoffs with him getting extra rest. 72 games, 94 points for the Winnipeg Jets, who, of course, lost in overtime last night against the Oilers. They're 14-10-1 since the All-Star break, a 580 points percentage. So low, comparatively speaking, especially with the teams that they're fighting for this top spot with. 2.92 goals scored per game, 2.72 goals against per game. One of the lower numbers in terms of goals scored per game. They're barely ahead of Boston, and they're ahead of Vancouver. So I am ready for disappointment. But Hellebuck has not been as good as his backup either. There's the other qualifier here too, and I'm sure people in the comments will, stupid hockey guy. The backup will usually play against a weaker opponent than the starter. I don't think that's as true as it was, say, 20, 30 years ago, but that's definitely there. Hellebuck's numbers, 9-8-1 with a 912 save percentage. Brossoit, 5-2 with a 928 save percentage. So since the All-Star break, Brossoit's been good. One thing to keep in mind, Brossoit was the starting goalie for Vegas against Winnipeg to start last year's playoffs. So as crazy as it may sound, I would say you go with the hot goalie. If you're Rick Bowness and if you decide for game one, you know what, Brossoit's played really well. Let's throw him in there. See if we can throw the other team off. I don't have a problem with that. Vancouver, 72 games, 98 points. They're 12-8-3 since the All-Star break, 587 points percentage. Scoring 2.83 goals per game, allowing 2.83 goals per game. It's been a kind of a mediocre mixed bag for Vancouver since the All-Star break. And the goaltending, which was fantastic, and bailing them out at times early in the season, not as good since the All-Star break. Demko, of course, is currently injured. 8-5-1 with a 907 save percentage. Casey DeSmith's doing the best he can, but he's not a starter. He's 4-3-2 with an 875 save percentage. Of course, he's the guy until Demko comes back. So I do think that's probably caused them to lose a game here and there that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have. But I can't really put that on DeSmith. I just feel like with the 2.83 goals scored per game, I don't know, something's just different with the Canucks over the second half of the season. We'll see if they can shake themselves out of these doldrums they've been in. This is why I've been saying I just enjoy the ride while it lasts. I enjoy the regular season. I enjoy watching a team win during the regular season because I never have any idea what's going to happen in the postseason. For the Oilers, 90 points in 70 games for them. So they're 8 points back of first place. They've got 2 games in hand, right? 14-8-3 record since the All-Star break, 620 points percentage, scoring 3.68 goals per game and allowing 3.16 goals against per game. I do have some, I don't know if concern's the right word. I'll be curious to see how Skinner does in the playoffs. Better way of phrasing it. He's 9-5-3 since the All-Star break with a 897 save percentage. Pickard's 5-3 with a 912 save percentage. And where this gets interesting to me is that right now they would play the LA Kings. And the LA Kings are playing a very stifling style of hockey. It's tough to play that in the playoffs. In 71 games, the LA Kings have 87 points. They're 15-7-1 since the All-Star break. 674 points percentage, so that's quite good. It's the same record in points percentage as the Florida Panthers have. 3.04 goals scored per game by LA. They're allowing 2.3 goals against per game. Basically, you got to score first against the Kings. Talbot's 9-3-1 since the All-Star break with a 933 save percentage. Riddick's 6-4 with a 916 save percentage. goaltending's been pretty good. I don't think there's anything to pick at here with the LA Kings and go, well, clearly this is what's going to sink them. They've been the best team in the Pacific, record-wise, since the All-Star break. Do not sleep on the Kings. I did a video on that very early in the season. I did a video on that before the season even started. Like, are we discounting the Kings? Then we get to the wild card spots. And by wild cards, I mean the hottest team in the NHL and the defending Stanley Cup champions. Pick your poison. Nashville, 72 games, 90 points. They're 17-2-2 since the All-Star break. 857 points percentage. 3.95 goals scored per game. And 2.38 goals against per game. So, you name it, Nashville's owning it right now. And Nashville's within striking distance now of Winnipeg. So, when you look at the points percentage differences here, Winnipeg 14-10-1, Nashville 17-2-2. Those records since the All-Star break tell you Winnipeg shouldn't be resting on their laurels at all, or they could find themselves in a wild card spot, which would be interesting because then we could potentially see, say, Winnipeg and Vancouver in the first round. Should be a fascinating one. But Nashville, Saros has been great. 13-2-2 with a .923 save percentage. He had a rough first half. And I think that's a big part of the reason why their record wasn't great not too long ago. But since he's picked it up, so's the rest of the team. Lankinen's 4-0 since the All-Star break. .925 save percentage. Kevin Lankinen remains one of the more underrated backups in the National Hockey League. And finally, Vegas. 72 games, 86 points. They're 10-10-2. Since the All-Star break, but they've been hot lately, right? So they are 500. They're scoring 3.14 goals per game and allowing 3.41 goals against per game since the All-Star break. So they're definitely going to want to make sure that the defense and the goaltending are in order, and that's the one concern that you'd have if you're Vegas right now. Aiden Hill's hurt. He's 6-8 though since the All-Star break with an .889 save percentage. I don't know that he's been 100% throughout that. Thompson 4-2-1 with a .911 save percentage. Just Aiden Hill's save percentage was fantastic in the first half of the season. It's been very pedestrian since. I do wonder if he's been dealing with an injury and now he's out again and all that, right? Patera 0-1 with an .857 save percentage. That's last night's game on the board. So it will be very interesting to see which of the teams that are red hot right now can carry that on into the playoffs. Which team would you not want your team to play against in the playoffs? And why? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. But yeah, for me right now, I would say the team in the East I would not want to have to face in the first round might be the Capitals, honestly. Might be the Capitals because of the way they play hockey. And out West, it's got to be Nashville. That 18-game point streak, it just feels like there's an inevitability to the way they've been playing. They're 9 points out of first in the division, which is unlikely. But again, could they pass Winnipeg? Yeah. And then if you get, say, Dallas, Nashville in the first round or Colorado, Nashville in the first round, who knows what's going to happen? So let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.